Welcome to the Nightly Talk with your host, Nicholas. So last night we touched on a few things related to the labor shortage. Actually received a comment that said that we're paying people slave wages and that's why we can't keep them employed. And then calling it something that it's not. We're calling it a labor shortage when we're not paying enough, which is untrue. So we're going to address a few things with that. One of them being the actual wage that we're paying now. The average wage across the U.S., if we're looking at as of October 2021, the average labor wage is $53,490. It's $1,028 a week, and that's according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So if we look at year over year, starting back in the year 2015 all the way to now, that's a 4.52 a year increase since 2015, or 15,224 a year. That's 22.2% overall increase from 15 to 2021. So to say we're paying people slave wages is just untrue. We've created a lazy society with these handouts, and I'll stick by that. Because if we look at a lot of things like the average monthly electricity bill in the United States is about $111, $112. So the total annual average for household expenses is about $17,200, and that's all things related to housing. Now, Americans spend an additional $7,068 on other products and services that make a dwelling livable, for a total of 27% of annual income on total home expenditures. And then like maybe an additional 8% on food. So still you're roughly around 36% of your annual income on all things related to your home. So with that, I mean, you're still about 35,000 bring home, and that's after everything. That's after paying for everything. So where's the other 35,000 going? People don't have savings accounts anymore. The saying has always been true. The more we make, the more we spend. The average American spends about $10,000 to $20,000 more a year than they make, and that comes in the form of debt, credit cards, loans, etc. So we're not paying slave wages. We're actually paying people very, very well. And I understand there's going to be pockets in the United States where the minimum wage is much lower than what the median income is for middle class, but that does not make up the whole United States. If you look at the bigger cities like Chicago, LA, New York, those wages are well above $15 an hour. You get down around the Peoria, Illinois area, and wages are around $14, $15 an hour, when the average household cost is around $800 a month. So we're not paying slave wages, and for someone to say that we're paying slave wages, I guess depending on where they're from, it could be true. I understand in places like Alabama, Florida, a lot of the southern states that the minimum wage is $8-9 an hour, and I'm sure that there is pockets where there are people who are being paid that and they accept jobs at that. But again, like I said last night, it's just a starting point. You can start there, go to school, get an education, get a degree, and continue to better yourself from there. Doesn't mean you have to make $8 or $9 an hour for the rest of your life. It's called putting in hard work. I myself do it every day. So to say that we're paying people slave wages everywhere is just untrue. If you look at the average again, it's almost $54,000 a year. It's $1,028 a week. And if you look at that, that's that's $4,080 a month. Or actually a little more than that. It's about $4,200 a month. That is definitely not slave wages. We've just created a very lazy society where handouts are easier to get. If you go back 20 years, you look at what minimum wage was 20 years ago. I think it was around, the average U.S. Wage for a labor worker 20 years ago was around $4 an hour. Yes, things were cheaper, but right now, where people are now, they're making more than they ever have in their entire life, and still would rather take a handout. That's the valid argument to that. I mean, if you look at what $54,000 a year would buy, when your total annual average is only around $25,000, you still have about $30,000 a year that you could save or spend on whatever most Americans spend it on anyway. But it's definitely not a slave wage. Slave wage is, and again, I go back that there are pockets in the United States where there are people still only making $7, $8, $9 an hour. But you also have the means to move from that area and move yourself elsewhere to make that $53,000 a year. So if you choose to stay where you're at and make that slave wage, as this guy called it, then that's a choice you've made on your own, not somebody else's fault. So to continue to say that we're paying slave wages to these people is just, it's obscene. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, though. I just wanted to kind of respond and give a little more info based on a reply I'd gotten to my podcast from last night. But so moving on, I actually want to talk about a story from today about vaccines. So this story came out of California, but I'm going to give you some rough numbers first. So vaccines, there's 216 million with the first dose in the United States, 187 million fully vaccinated people. That's 56.8% of the population. So talking about that, there's a story that came out of California today about vaccines and health insurance premiums. Talking about, will they increase? So now that the Pfizer vaccine has been approved by the FDA, there's been some talk about whether your health insurance premiums are going to increase for people who choose to remain unvaccinated. And to me, this shouldn't even be a question. I think being vaccinated, whether you've taken it, whether you've not taken it, it's your choice. It shouldn't be mandated that you have to take it, or you shouldn't be shamed for it. I think the biggest problem with people not taking the vaccine is just not their right to feel like they're not being forced to do something, but shaming these people for not taking it. First of all, it's really nobody's business whether they take the vaccine or not. Yes, it is a highly contagious disease. I have no doubt about that. But it's their personal choice. And if they choose to not take it, they know the consequences. Most of them that have made this choice are adults and have the right as an American to choose whether they take something or not and stick it in their body. Unfortunately, our president doesn't see it that way, and now they're giving some control to these insurance companies on whether you take the dose or not. And so the story I'm reading out of California kind of addresses some of this with whether you take it or not, will your premiums increase? And the short answer to that is no. But what they will do is if you catch COVID and you go to the hospital, they're going to phase out the cost-sharing waiver for COVID-19 treatment and pass that cost on to you. So you're going to end up paying more medical bills if you catch COVID because your insurance company is going to refuse to pay them. Places like employers like Delta Airlines, they've announced that unvaccinated employees could face a $200 monthly surcharge of their health insurance. Employers through wellness programs can impose a higher cost on people who are unvaccinated outside of the health plan. Employers can provide incentives and penalties to their employees. You know, it's crazy to me. If we look at the vaccine as a whole, you know, it was rolled out really fast. There was some issues with the Johnson & Johnson causing blood clots and killing people. There were some issues with the Moderna causing some heart-related problems in some younger people. You know, so I think there's a lot of fear there among some people who haven't taken the vaccine. But again, it's their choice. And I think the other issue is they feel like they're having it shoved down their throat. And so you're getting some pushback with, well, you're not going to make me take it, so I'm just not going to take it. You know, I think if they would have rolled it out differently, because people are educated at this point. They know the risks of not taking it. They know the risk of taking it and the benefits. And obviously there are some benefits to taking it. I don't disagree with that. But I think between having it shoved down their throat and then all these breakthrough cases, they're pessimistic about taking it. You know, I think if they would have rolled the program out differently, offered it another way, educated people on it, and not talked about going door to door and knocking on people's doors to find out if they were vaccinated or not, or mandating companies with more than 100 employees to make their employees be vaccinated. You know, I think there's a lot of craziness there that our president should have never been involved in, should have never even mentioned. And I think the confusion with Fauci, back and forth with masks, no masks, 2 masks, you know, and then you know, you can't have Thanksgiving, you can't have Christmas, and then you see these celebrities or these mayors or these governors who are at all these events with no masks on, and then you see our president at events with no masks on, and, you know, what's good for thee is not for me. You know, what you're going to get, you know, half the country, half the population's pushing back against this. It's almost split down the middle at, you know, 56.8 fully vaccinated, 216 million with the first dose. You know, that's roughly half the country. It's about a 402 million total doses. You have the other half of the country like, wait a minute, you know, if you're not taking the vaccine, or if you don't have to wear the mask, but you're preaching to me that I have to do this, then I'm not going to do it. You know, it's almost an antic of whether or not, you know, of a 15-year-old who says, well, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm grown up now, when they're not grown up. But to speak to that, just to say you're going to take this, you know, you can't force people to do things. They should have rolled it out in a better program, better educated people in the beginning. Maybe a different program that said, hey, this is why we pushed it through so fast. This is what we did to make it go through so fast. There were some trials, or there weren't some trials, and I'm not 100% whether there was or there wasn't. But I'm sure that they probably tested it on some animals. We do a lot of that. but they should have educated people differently rather than making them feel like they had to take it, or as if they were mandating to take it, and they're still pushing on that. They're trying to make these employers who have more than 100 employees mandate it for their employees to take it. Well, you're not going to do anything but make those people leave those jobs if they really are dead set on not taking this vaccine. It's a personal choice. It almost goes back to abortion. It should be the women's right, whether they have an abortion or not. And you're taking that right away from the people who, whether they want the vaccine or not, and then you're shaming them. Well, if you don't take the vaccine, then you have to test every day or test once a week in order to go to work. And it's very 1943 Nazi-ish. I liken it to Nazi Germany. Just very, you're going to take this whether you want to or not. We're going to make sure you do. And you're getting a huge amount of people that are pushing back against this. Half the country, or a little less than half the country. It's really driven down Biden's approval rate. Probably close to the lowest a president has ever been, at like around 38%. You're getting pushback for a lot of things against Biden, but not just the vaccine. I mean, there's way more to it than that. But I think for someone, if they're going to take the vaccine, it should be a personal choice. There's other stories about whether these healthcare plans can be changed to fit that. But the Affordable Care Act and other federal laws prohibit insurers from charging more for people who are not vaccinated. But employers, through incentive programs, may and can increase people's cost if they're unvaccinated. So I can verify that no health insurance will go up for unvaccinated, but you need to check with your employer about any changes. Because that's what they're really trying to push through, is this whole vaccine thing, and you're just going to get more pushback. Shaming people and forcing stuff on them, it's insane to me. I don't get it. It's a personal choice. So basically, you just got to stop trying to push this vaccine on people, and you probably should have rolled it out a different way, and you wouldn't have so much pushback on it. We're really going to stop there with the vaccine story, though, and I kind of want to circle back around to the beginning of this and talk a little more about the current situation we're in with the shortage of labor. It seems to be the story of the topic story today. So there's a story that Geraldo Rivera kind of touched on a little bit on the 5 with Fox News, and he's talking about Biden doesn't really understand that giving people free money that should have a job is hurting the economy. You're giving them an incentive to stay at home, and that goes back to the slave wage that we're not paying people. And that slave wage term just kills me, because we're paying people an incentive to stay home rather than to go to work. We've created a very lazy society. And with that being said, I mean, the worst thing that Biden could do is just to keep flooding free money to people who should have some type of incentive to get a job and improve themselves. It's just crazy that he wants to continue to give all these people this free money rather than make them go back to work. We're looking at the Delta variant, which is down in numbers considerably, even over where we were at last year, and there is an ebb and flow to it. And they've shown that through the summer and fall it kind of dips down, and then it comes back up through the winter because people have a tendency to stay inside around each other more. But we're at the lowest point we've been in over a year with with the coronavirus and numbers, and you know, to continue to incentivize these people to just stay home and do nothing. It's crazy. It's crazy. Go back to work. Let these people go to work. Open things up. You have half the country that's vaccinated. You have 216 million people with the first dose. You know, let the other half decide whether they want to take it or not, but let these people go back to work. Stop giving them money to stay home. You're not doing anything but hurting them. As I said on my podcast yesterday, found money never did anybody any good because all they do is blow it. Yes, you're pumping money back into the economy, but it's only benefiting retailers, food industry. It's not benefiting the people you're giving the money to. You see, if you look at the numbers for quarterly earnings, you see that these companies have a huge increase, 30% year over year in profit. That's a huge increase. You know, that's in the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. You're not doing people any good with this. You're hurting the economy, because what's going to happen is once you run out of reasons to give people free money, the economy is going to fall flat. You've inflated the economy on this bubble that's going to burst with this free money, and then all of a sudden these people, when you can't give them any more free money, or you run out of reasons to give them free money and they have to go back to work, they're not getting the amount of money that you are giving them for free. All of a sudden, bam, the economy falls flat. Now what do? Now you have to create another scenario to give more stimulus. It's a very circle chasing problem. You're literally chasing yourself in a circle. So continue to hand out this free money, and then when you can't give out anymore because you don't have any more reasons, COVID goes away. We open up the country. Now people have to go back to work, and they're not pumping the money into the economy. Now the economy falls flat. You know, you've just created a huge mess, a huge problem, and that's all you're doing. You're not doing these people any good. The only people you're doing any good is these great big corporations like Walmart, like Target, that are just making huge amounts of money. Look, they made so much money. Like these insurance companies, they made so much money last year because people weren't driving, so accidents were down. They actually had to give back money to people because the federal government stepped in and said they had to. And now the federal government's saying they didn't give back enough money, so they have to give back more money to their insured or face fines. Okay, so then why aren't we stepping in and doing that with Walmarts and Targets? Why aren't they giving money back to people where they profited the most? You know, but that just goes to what I'm saying is just Biden's creating this huge mess of, you know, we continue to give people free money, and then when they have to go back to work because you're not giving them free money, now they're not making what they were making with you giving them this free money, or maybe they were working the whole time and you were giving them free money, but they were only working part-time, or they were receiving unemployment, so they had that income plus the free money you're giving them, and now they're just spending this money like crazy because they know you're going to give them more money, but then you run out of reasons to give them money, and you've inflated this huge bubble, and it pops. You know, and then we're back to what, 2008? You know, I don't know the answer here, and I don't know that there's an easy answer at all. But what I do know is you got to stop giving these people money. Stop giving them money. Make them go back to work. Open these cities completely back up. Let people get back to their normal lives. If that means wearing a mask for another year, fine. Wear a mask. Mandate that. Mandate masks for all people who work inside. You know, but let's use some common sense to it. So, you know, if you want to mandate masks, fine, for people who work inside buildings close to each other. But to try to mandate masks for everybody everywhere, and you're fighting yourself on that. It goes back to the vaccine thing. You're just pushing things on people, but I don't see how it could ever work either way. But it seems like these companies, for the most part, with their employees, they've got the whole mask thing under control. But stop giving people free money. Stop making them stay home, or letting them stay home. Make them go to work. I mean, let's talk about making money to self-improve, not waiting on the handout to continue to stay lazy and not go to work. It feeds into the whole vaccine and labor shortage and stimulus package and money, and it's just one big circle. You're chasing yourself tail over tail, and you're not doing any good. You're not making any positive headway for any of these people that you're just giving the money to, who refuse to go to work. I mean, I can tell you right now, I set up 20 interviews, and this is not even folks, this is real numbers. Okay, if I set up 20 interviews, 5 people show. 5 people out of 20 for an interview. And if I hire those 5 people, one, if I hire all 5, only 1 will actually show, and they'll work about a week and quit. Because it pays them more to stay home. And that's with wages at $14 and $15 an hour. Now do the math here. I mean, do the math. I mean, if you look at $14 an hour, okay, times 40 hours a week, right, is $560 a week, times 2, okay, it's $1,120, times 2, it's $2,240 a month, times 12, it's $26,880 a year. Okay, so $26,880 a year, or they don't work at all. They get handed, stimulus package after stimulus package, and just blow it. You're creating a bigger mess, because now they don't pay their rent, now they don't pay their car note, now they're driving a piece of junk, or maybe they're not driving at all, they're just taking the bus. You're asking these people to be comfortable in poverty. You're just asking them to stay in poverty. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Go to work. Make a wage. First of all, you'll feel better about yourself. Good job done. You'll feel good at going home at night. Secondly, you're trying to self-improve. And that doesn't mean you always have to make $14 an hour. You could literally go to school while you're making that wage, part-time, get a 2-year degree, and automatically find a job that will pay you more than double within 3 years. So you spend 3 years in poverty, and not even, it's actually still above the poverty line, but let's say $26,000 or $28,000 a year's poverty line. So you spend 3 years in the poverty line. You've got a degree now. You've self-improved. You've got a job now that pays you, a career, not even a job, a career now that pays you 1.5 times what you were making. You're making $80,000 a year. You're able to, 3 years of your life, and you're able to give your kids almost anything they want. You're able to buy a home. You're able to buy a car. But instead, you're incentivizing people to stay home. That's not self-improvement. We want you to stay poor. And that goes back to what I said yesterday. That's what these liberals want. They want you to stay poor, to create more programs, to buy your vote, and that's what they're doing. They're using this money to buy your vote. Oh, look at us. We're the liberals. We're going to give you money. All you got to do is vote for us. We're just going to continue to give you money, but all you got to do is vote for us. And these people fall for it. It's insane to me. I don't get it. So anyway, that wraps up tonight's show. Kind of a shorter show than it was last night, but I appreciate you guys listening. Tune in tomorrow for episode 3. Have a good night.